Another big story this morning. Voting is underway in 4 regions of Ukraine in so-called referendums on joining Russia. These Kremlin-orchestrated ballots are taking place in the occupied areas of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. Those regions make up about 15% of Ukraine's territory. But the votes have been denounced in Kyiv and by the West, calling them illegal and a sham. NBC News senior national correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Ukraine's capital with more. So, Jay, we understand voting is expected to continue until Tuesday. What more can you tell us about what's happening in those regions right now? And what is the message from Kyiv to people living in those areas?
Yeah, Joe, and right now on the ground, we know that ballots are being delivered door to door in those 4 regions that you talk about, from the east through the south of Ukraine. There are also makeshift poll places that have been established, but most of the voting, they say, will take place from home, and Russian officials say they're very confident in the results of this election. Kyiv here and the President Zelensky saying, again, that this is a sham election with no legal or international standing. And that opinion, of course, echoed by Western leaders, and NATO has said it will not recognize the results as well. President Zelensky also, Joe, going on to say it will not slow down their effort in the counteroffensive.
So, Jay, I mean, many see these votes as a foregone conclusion in favor of annexation, similar to what we saw in Crimea back in 2014. How could it impact the war if Russia then recognizes those regions as part of its own territory? And does it change anything from a Western perspective?
Yeah, and I think it helps to put it in perspective, Joe. These votes were initially scheduled for November, but rushed up as the counteroffensive really went better than anyone thought it would, including Ukraine. And they were able to take back a large section of Zaporizhia. So they decided to move these votes up and try and get something done here. What it would basically do is give the Kremlin the pretext to claim any effort to retake occupied territories would basically be an attack on Russia itself. Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy head of the Russian Security Council, kind of laying that out in this quote. He says the protection of all the territories that have joined will be significantly strengthened by the Russian armed forces. Any Russian weapons, including strategic nuclear weapons and weapons based on new principles, could be used for such protection. And that nuclear threat is something that clearly has the attention of a lot of people in the West. Yesterday, the U.S. saying that NATO's got to come out and say something to stop them from these what they call nuclear threats.
Jay, we're also watching what's actually unfolding inside Russia after President Putin announced that partial military mobilization earlier this week. We understand thousands of men have already been handed draft papers. Others are actually fleeing. What's the latest there?
Well, you saw the initial reaction. It was instant. People pouring into the streets, thousands protesting not only the call up, the mobilization, but also the war itself. And you're right. Russia Defense Ministry says that 10,000 men have just gone and volunteered, not waiting for what they call a subpoena there to serve. We know that all of the flights, one-way flights out of Russia, were booked immediately following this announcement. The roadways heading into Mongolia, Finland, and Georgia packed with people trying to make their exit. We also know from Google that the searches spiked immediately after that announcement on how to leave Russia. That was one of the questions. And another question, Joe, was how to break your own arms. It sounds like from all of that, obviously, there are a lot of people who don't agree with this mobilization and don't want to take part in that. And as a result, you've seen a strong message from here in Kyiv telling Russian soldiers there is a way out. Lay down your weapons. We will take you and take care of you. You will be held until after the war. And at that point, you may not have to return to Russia. So they're trying to seize on what they say is a clear indication that the Russian people don't support this war.
How to break your own arm. My goodness. All right. Jay Gray reporting from Kyiv. Yeah. Jay, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.